Supposedly involving children, ritual of children.
Who do you think should be in prison that's walking around free?
Hillary Clinton would be an excellent start. They know the Steele dossier is a fraud. They know the DNC has never been hacked. They have made up this narrative as a way to remove Donald Trump. Obama is the centerpiece of it. They wanted to send me to die in prison. The government knows a lot about unidentified flying objects.
If you weren't pardoned, how much time were they trying to throw at you?
Well, that's an interesting question. The prosecutors in my case, in their sentencing recommendation, they gave me time for crimes that I was never convicted of. So they said specifically, Stone was convicted of being involved in foreign interference in the election. Wasn't even charged with that. Stone threatened to kill a federal judge. That wasn't true either. I posted a graphic, which I didn't create, which in the corner had a logo from the organization that did create it. It was a thing called Corruption Central. By the end of the media feeding frenzy, Stone posted a picture of the judge with a rifle crosshair over her face. No, I didn't. Go back and look at it. But when you're in this maelstrom of a media, hurricane, the truth never comes out. So they kept adding charges for which I hadn't been convicted. So I was looking at 7 to 9 years based on the idea that I lied about something that never happened.
Well, that ain't too bad. Because I always wonder, like, if I didn't get pardoned, damn, like 20, 30, 40, like, that's scary. I mean, 7's bad enough, especially when you didn't do anything.
Well, I was 68 years old at the time. Also a lifetime history of asthma, despite the fact that I've always, been athletic. I'd been an amateur bodybuilder. I was in pretty good shape, but they wanted to send me to a prison where the Bureau of Prisons said there were no COVID cases. And then an African-American woman who was the head of the prison guards union at that particular prison read about this or saw it on TV, tracked down my lawyer and said, they're lying. There's 200 cases here that they're hiding. So I think the idea was for me to die in prison. First of all, it's impossible for you to raise money for your appeal. Every one of the judges' rulings, pretrial rulings against me was unconstitutional, every one. So I was not allowed to use evidence of corruption by the special counsel, the FBI, the Department of Justice, or any member of Congress in my defense. That's unconstitutional. Under the Kyles v. Whitley decision, the integrity of an indictment or an investigation is always grounds for defense, but not in this courtroom.
Did it ever have you shook, like scared that, like, dude, you're going down now? These some bitches got you.
I was frustrated, angry. I was depressed. I was scared, but not for myself. I was scared for my wife because I didn't know how she would support herself, how she would live, where she would live. I mean, I have kids, adult children, but they were struggling financially themselves.
Did they seize all your finances?
They didn't, but it didn't matter because I ran out of money. I mean, I essentially lost my home, my car, my insurance, and I was gagged for almost 2 years, 18 months. So I make a living by speaking and writing, but if you can't speak and write on any subject, it's very hard to make a living. So I was essentially destroyed financially. And it was during that time that a young pastor who I kept in touch with, a guy named Randy Coggins, who has a new book out, great new book, very dynamic young pastor, told me, you got to turn your burden over to God. You got to get right with the church. I mean, you believe in God, don't you? And I said, yeah, but, I've kind of wandered from the church. I'm a Catholic. And he said, well, you're making a big mistake. You need to confess and get right with God. And he convinced me to meet with Franklin Graham, who was traveling in the area where I live in South Florida. I had a brief session with Franklin Graham. And I'm still thinking politically. I'm like, well, Reverend Graham, you're close to President Trump, who I'm no longer able to talk to. I went from talking to him every day to not being allowed to talk to him at all. maybe you could put in a good word for me, for clemency. And he said, well, I'll think about that, but let me give you a much better piece. He said, I'll see what I can do, but let me give you a much better piece of advice. If you will change your life, if you'll confess your sins, if you'll get right with God, God will protect you from these monsters. God will lift you up and protect you from those who are persecuting you. And I didn't say yes right away. I thought about it. And then we went out in this field during his revival. And he's not his father, who I met when I worked for Nixon. It was Billy Graham was probably one of the greatest men in the 20th century. But Franklin Graham's very effective in his own right, very effective preacher, pastor, apostle for God. And he came to the part of his oration where he said, I don't care if your problem is alcoholism or a gambling addiction or health problems or financial problems or family problems. It doesn't matter what your problem is. Turn your burden over to the Lord, confess your sins, get right with God, and your life will change. And you'll live forever with our Heavenly Father. And in that moment, I stood up with 200 other Christians. I got right. I confessed my sins. I got right with God, and it changed everything. I mean, it was like having cement blocks removed from your shoulders. And when I got home, my wife said, "What happened to you? You left here. I was worried you might kill yourself." And I said, "You know what? This is all going to be fine. It's all going to work out." And I talk about that. I mean, I'm not a saint. I'm most certainly not a prophet. I'm just a soldier in the army of God. I have to fight every day. God teaches us to forgive, but He doesn't say you should forget. So this is why I still have problems with Steve Bannon. Bannon testified, as I say, for the House Intelligence Committee, just like I did, under oath. He's asked, did you ever talk to Roger Stone about WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or these stolen emails? He says, no, never. On no occasion, Adam Schiff says. No, never spoke to him about it. Then he shows up at my trial as a government witness. He sweeps to the witness stand all in black, kind of like a fat Johnny Cash. Won't look me in the eye. They ask him the exact same question. Did you ever speak to Roger Stone about WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or these stolen emails? Yes, he said. Stone brought it up in every phone conversation I had with him in 2016. I considered Stone our access point to WikiLeaks. I'd already taken 2 polygraph tests on those 2 narrow questions and passed them. It was perjury. So have I forgiven him? Yes. Have I forgotten it? No.
You know things people will never know. Obviously, you've got some eyewitness like information that would probably shock the world on several occasions. What's one?
Well, let's see. One of them I've already told you, which is that the reason I became convinced that Lyndon Johnson was the linchpin in the murder of Kennedy was because President Nixon told me that. Otherwise, I would not know it. That would probably be the deepest thing. But most people don't recognize that I believe, and I will prove in this upcoming book, that it was George H.W. Bush who orchestrated the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. I'm going to prove that in my upcoming book.
Why do you think he did that?
There was a struggle over our control of foreign policy. When the Boland Amendment cut off U.S. funding to the freedom fighters in Nicaragua, Bill Casey, the CIA director, and George H.W. Bush, the vice president, started this elaborate scheme in which we interdicted drugs. We shipped those drugs into Mena, Arkansas, illegally, of course, and then we sold those drugs in the United States to raise the cash to illegally finance the Contras. They had to find a friendly governor who would let them land their plane. They went to Arkansas. So Bill Clinton was in on this. The guy who oversaw that operation, Bill Barr, the future Attorney General of the United States. who was at that time a lawyer for the CIA. Photographic evidence of that, which I produce in my book, The Bush Crime Family.
So you would agree that there are people above the law?
There's no question about that. Let's start with Bill and Hillary Clinton. I mean, how they have escaped criminal prosecution for the various crimes they've been involved in. And maybe that's about to come to an end. We shall see. But there are certain people who are above the law. Let's remember that they investigated Hillary's illegal email servers. On the Friday before the election, James Comey, the FBI director, reopened that investigation. That's because Huma Abedin, who had been Hillary's kind of right-hand woman, had been sending her husband, Anthony Weiner, the disgraced congressman from New York, basically what I think was her blackmail file, her blackmail protection file of various things that if the Clintons ever turned on her, she could use for her own defense. Folks at the New York Police Department, people I know, have seen those files, and they basically told the FBI director, if you don't release these, or at least announce they exist, we're going to, because they retained a copy. The 5 officers who've seen that material all committed suicide. I find that very strange.
Very strange. And is that a fact?
That is a fact.
Have you heard the rumor of what's on that laptop?
Supposedly sex acts involving children, ritual murder of children, but I mean, I don't know firsthand. It's interesting that Comey reopened the investigation on a Friday, and he closed the investigation and said that there was no evidence to prosecute Hillary on the Monday before the election. Now, there's supposedly 330,000 records. They'd already been investigating her email server for 2 years. So I'm not sure how they got through 330,000 records in a weekend, but she believes it was what cost her the election. I think, candidly, she would have lost the election anyway. Donald Trump just out-hustled her in the close. So she took Michigan, Wisconsin, particularly, Pennsylvania, for granted. And that was an enormous mistake. She never visited Michigan again. Trump, who is just an individual of enormous physical energy, even at his current age, the guy does not sleep. I mean, he gets 3 to 4 hours sleep a night. I mean, he is kinetic energy. When you have a pilot can only fly so many hours before they have to go down for rest. It's an FAA regulation. Trump just kept switching out the pilots. He just kept going. He barnstormed all the Democrat strongholds in the last days. He hit Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Detroit, Cleveland, Milwaukee, and then he would start all over again. And he had so much groundswell energy. He could call and say, tell him we'll be in Philadelphia in 3 hours. And when he got to the airport in Philadelphia, there'd be 24,000 people there. So you could see that there was something happening.
He understands marketing.
And also, he was on fire. I mean, he was hot in the clothes, and she was up in Chappaqua going through swatches of material to pick out the fabrics for the curtains in the White House. She thought this was in the bag. So he completely outworked her in the end. He outsmarted her in the end. And his candidacy was hot. He was closing strong.
Now, were you making shots and behind the scenes?
I was in touch with him through that entire period, sure.
Now, if Hillary would have asked you, hey, I'll pay you whatever, come help me win, would you have said pound sand?
Zero chance. I don't believe in any of the things she believes in.
So you're not just a hired gun. You have to buy into who they are.
I'm a libertarian, conservative Republican. That's how I came to politics. I would admit to you that I was once kind of a more traditional conservative. Then over time, Ron Paul, Rand Paul, that brand of libertarianism really appeals to me. I mean, absolute freedom. I'm a great believer in freedom. But no, I couldn't, no amount of money would get me to work for somebody I didn't philosophically agree with.
Now, you wanted to be an actor
I did.
when you were young.
Yeah.
Any thoughts of like getting back into that?
No, zero chance. I wouldn't mind, playing myself in a movie sometime, or I wouldn't. There's a new movie, The Apprentice, about Donald Trump, in which they have a guy who plays me. First of all, I'm much better dressed than this guy. Secondarily, I'm much better looking than this guy. I would do a cameo in a movie playing a political consultant,
But not as an actor.
Well, as an actor, but just in a minor role. I am in one movie. There's a movie called Roe v. Wade. I play a Washington Post reporter. A friend of mine, Nick Loeb, made the movie. It's a great little movie. It centers around the courthouse in Louisiana, the state courthouse. The guy who built the U.S. Supreme Court sold the blueprints a second time. So the Supreme Court building in the state of Louisiana is identical to the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. And that's where the Roe v. Wade case went to trial. So I play a Washington Post reporter. I have a tiny role in this movie. I was very sleazy, duplicitous, and underhanded. In other words, exactly like a Washington Post reporter.
What made you fall in love with politics? You like attended something at 12 years old, and then all of a sudden decided, hey, I'm in this game.
Now, actually, what happened was I lived in a very rural area in Connecticut, outside New York City, but there are no kids my age for 25 miles. So that means no team sports, no basketball, no baseball. You had to do things you could do on your own. So I became a long distance runner. Later on, I started lifting weights, but I was a voracious reader, and I liked history and biography. And the woman who lived next door to us was a very active Republican. She gave me a book by Barry Goldwater called Conscience of a Conservative. And I read this book, and I identified with everything in the book. Communism is wrong. It's a horrific, brutal, repressive system. I believed in low taxes. I believed in a strong national defense. I believed in free speech. I believed that government should stay out of the boardroom and the bedroom, out of your life. And that book is what made me want to be in politics. That book changed my life in every way. And I realized that's what I wanted to do. And of course, as I have said, politics is just show business for ugly people,
So if the government were fixed, that would mean the end of lobbying. And you were like one of the best lobbyists and strategists there was. If government was never corrupt, do you think you would have been able to achieve what you've achieved?
I was never a great lobbyist, just to be clear. My interest is always in politics more than government. When Nixon was elected, I went very briefly to work at the Office of Economic Opportunity for Don Rumsfeld. I didn't last 6 months. It was boring. I'm interested in the science and mechanics of getting elected to public office, of electing good men and women who believe in what I believe. I was never a great lobbyist. Lobbying was not invented by me or my partners. Lobbying was invented by the Democrats.
Don't you think it should be outlawed?
No, I don't think it should be outlawed, but I do think that voters need to pay closer attention to the pattern of contributions and votes. I think that you need much greater public education in that regard.
Yeah, because that's where the money's coming from. And
Farm-
wherever the money's coming from is usually coincidentally the way they vote.
Yes, but also just the confirmation of Robert Kennedy as Secretary of HHS is proof that big money can be defeated. Because believe me, Big Pharma went all out to try to stop his confirmation, and they failed because he had a compelling mission, a compelling message that he wants to make the country healthier again. How can we be the wealthiest country in the world yet have this epidemic of obesity in our children, have this have these spikes in autism, for example. These things don't make any sense. So I think that his mission was so compelling to the American people uh, that there was a groundswell of public support just from average people, not political people, just average people who want our food, our medicine to be healthier. I mean, how
Who
can,
wouldn't?
but yes, but I'm afraid that until he elevated this issue in a way that he has, it's unbelievable to me that breakfast cereals that are sold here are also sold in Europe. There's a bunch of additives that are illegal in Europe, but they're not illegal here. There's poison in our food. But really, until he raised these issues, I don't think they got the kind of public exposure they really deserved.
Well, I would agree, but again, I mean that's what I mean. The American people aren't aware that this is an actual fact. Then when it comes out, they throw out spins and rumors and oh, that's just conspiracy. When in fact, it's fact. Like there's chemicals and things in our food that are not allowed in other countries. Why wouldn't the FDA be held accountable? Who runs the FDA?
Well, now I think you have
And why would food and drug go together?
you have a health czar who is just yesterday. We're ending the mRNA vaccination
Yeah.
program. I mean, this is he's making incremental progress in so many ways. They've outlawed and they're phasing out a bunch of these red dyes and these other chemicals you won't be able to have in our food anymore.
I'm just wondering, like, why is it so difficult to do common sense shit?
Well, you have a very ingrained system and they have a lot of money. It takes time, but I think he's made great strides so far. I think he's above the president, among the president's very best appointees.
Who do you think should be in prison right now that's walking around free?
Hillary Clinton would be an excellent start, but also Joe Biden, who was in on the whole Russian collusion thing from the very beginning.
Does he even know it?
He may or may not know it.
Do you think Obama was running shit from the basement?
Oh, no question. No question.
So Obama was really the president when
Right,
Joe was mumbling around.
No question about this. This was the third term of Barack Obama, as evidenced by the fact that everybody around Biden they're all Obama people. But there is a legitimate question as to whether, under this recent Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, whether Obama can be held responsible for his role in the Russian collusion hoax. They know the Steele dossier is a fraud. They know the DNC has never been hacked. They have made up this narrative as a way to remove Donald Trump. Obama is the centerpiece of it. Biden is in the room when they decide it. Susan Rice, the national security advisor, James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, James Comey, the FBI director, who brags about it. Most precisely, John Brennan, the CIA director, Robert Mueller, who knows there's no crime, Andrew Weissman, who is the de facto head of the Mueller investigation. He knows all the way back to his days as general counsel to the FBI that the Steele dossier is a fraud. He knows it's a fabrication, but they still use it for the rationale for the illegal FISA warrants to spy on Trump. Trump was right about that. They also use it as the rationale for the appointment of Mueller, who, obviously went after me, General Flynn, Donald Trump. So, yeah, I think I actually published a list. There's about 80 people on it. You can see it on X. I think all those people should be prosecuted.
Do you have a list of all the people that should be in prison?
Yes.
On X?
Yes.
In your X account is
yes,
called?
I'm Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr. By the way, I'm still banned for life on Facebook. I'm still banned for life on Instagram. I'm still banned for life on YouTube.
What for?
You tell me. They never tell you. They just, one day, your profile disappears. That's how it works.
Yeah, see, this is one of the questions I was going to ask. I just have so many, we could be here forever, but I appreciate your time and I know you got to go, so I won't keep asking. But like social media platforms, do you think they should be held accountable for basically manipulating data that or information that's being put out there, and then they just suppress it?
If they're suppressing it, yes. I mean, look, I'm a fan of Elon Musk. I like Elon Musk. I think what he's done for free speech is unbelievable. So he buys Twitter. It's a courageous act for him to produce the records that prove that the government was working with Twitter executives to repress free speech. If you question the safety or the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination, if you question the outcome of the election, if you question whether Hunter Biden's laptop was real, it was, then they deperson you. You're gone. You're decapitated. So once he published the proof of that, so it was not just conjecture, he paints a giant target on his back. He immediately has 9 investigations into his various companies. He has questions about his government grants. I mean, I do think he played a significant and important role in Trump's election. But I also think that had Kamala Harris been elected, they would have destroyed his companies, destroyed his business, destroyed his companies. They probably would have tried to put him in jail. And he realized that. So he was acting in Trump's best interest. He was also acting in his own best interest. But more importantly, he was acting in the country's best interest. Is X, formerly Twitter, perfect? No, it's not perfect, but it's damn good. I'm very grateful to have my voice back. I had 980,000 followers when I was out of the blue banned in 2017. They don't even tell you why you're banned. I never got a notice. I never got an email. Just one day you go to your profile and it's gone.
Yeah.
And then when you try to correspond with them, nobody answers. So I offended somebody by saying something, not surprising. So I'm grateful to have my voice back. I doubt I will ever be reinstated in Facebook. I doubt I'll ever be reinstated on Instagram. The statements they put out said that I owned and controlled a large number of fake profiles on Facebook. That's not true. Just not true.
Yeah, no, I've been canceled for literally nothing. And I get strikes sometimes where it says, you're violating our community guidelines based on, sexual talk or something. And you look at the video and it has nothing to do with this, but it doesn't matter. There's no one. So it is what it is. That's the scary part of social media. That is pretty much today's television. That is today's news network. And if you can't get on it, you're kind of silenced. So they've got that power. So I think as a, political strategist, getting those people kind of on your candidate side would help immensely.
It's probably the single most important tool today in terms of communicating with people in an election situation. I just think you have to be judicious about what you say. And you have to, but I'm a free speech absolutist. So I read a lot of stuff I disagree with, but I don't disagree with people's rights to take that position. You can take a position different than mine. That's fine.
What do you think's going on between Elon and Trump?
Well, it's interesting because several weeks ago, Elon announced that he was forming his own party, but then in June, he gave $15 million to Trump's various political action committees. So I think that there may be a rapprochement in the works. I think it was the most significant political alliance in American history, and they had a great personal chemistry. And I know from Trump that he has great personal affection for Elon. I think they got crosswise over an appointment at NASA, which seems to be a foolish thing to get crosswise over. I hope they will get back together. I think he is a champion for free speech. He's a brilliant businessman. I would never own a Tesla. I think they're great looking, but I don't want an electric car. I'm hopeful that they will get back together. I'm an Elon fan.
How do you want the world to remember Roger Stone? 100 years from now in the history books, what do you hope it says about you?
That I made a difference. I stood up for what I believed in and I made a difference. I'd be happy with that.
Good. And last question. What can the bomb squad, that's the audience, what can we do for you?
Well, you can go to stonezone.com. You can check out my books if you want to know about how epically corrupt the Clintons are. You can look at the Clintons' War on Women. It is the definitive book on all their crimes, or the Bush crime family, because I'm not just Republican Democrat. The Bushes are epically corrupt. My own book, Stone's Rules, as I say, kind of a manual for life. So I don't care whether you're in retail or agriculture or high tech or fashion. No matter what business you are, or no matter what stage of life you're in, I think there are rules there, just simple things that I've learned from being on this planet as long as I have, that'd be beneficial to people. I highly recommend it. Plus, it's entertaining. It's not, it's heavy. It'll make you chuckle in a few places.
How many rules are there?
I think there's 146 rules, I believe. I'll do a second volume at some point. One of my famous rules: 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
Listening to the name Stone, I was thinking stoned. I come up with names, but I also hear you're a marijuana advocate.
I am. I'm actually for deregulation of marijuana.
You think it just should be just like tobacco? I mean,
Well,
or even
it is certainly less dangerous to your health than alcohol,
for sure.
And we regulate alcohol, so I think it should be deregulated in the sense that moving it, and I'm in favor of moving it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, but I'm really in favor of deregulating it entirely.
You mean federally?
Federally.
Because like here in Nevada, you can go buy it right now.
Of course, I think it's now legal in some form. I think in 42 states. I think that's right.
So isn't that pretty much telling the feds?
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense for something to continue to be a federal crime but not be a state crime. So if the federal government wanted to enforce current federal law, possession is still illegal. Selling it is still illegal.
So how come everyone's not in jail?
Well, because the under Obama, one of the few things they did that was smart was to say we're not going to enforce the federal law where states have legalized it. But for example, in the state of Florida, where it's legal only for medicinal purposes, the system is so bureaucratic and expensive. First of all, you can only get it for a specific list of illnesses. So if you have low back pain or you have depression, it's not available for those things. It's only available for cancer, multiple sclerosis, HIV, and so on. You have to turn over all your medical records. Well, I don't like that idea because I don't know where my medical records are going. Now you have to you have to get a certification from a physician, not just any physician, but a physician specifically licensed by the state. Now you get your card that allows you to buy. Now you have to go back to the same physician and get a prescription. Now you have to take that prescription to a state authorized dispensary. Now you buy your cannabis, you use it. Now you want to buy more. Guess what? You got to start all the way from the beginning of the system again. So the voters of Florida legalized medicinal marijuana. John Morgan, great friend of mine, Democrat, not my politics, but a great guy, major proponent for legalization, runs the law firm Morgan & Morgan, which you're probably familiar with. He got the state, he underwrote the effort to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that passed to legalize medicinal marijuana. But because the Republican legislature was opposed, they made the system as expensive, cumbersome, bureaucratic, inconvenient, and difficult as possible. I know veterans who use it for PTSD. I guarantee you it's better than OxyContin. It's better for you. It's less damaging, but it's not available for PTSD under the state system. So what's going to happen? Well, you're going to go to the local, gas station and you're going to buy pot from somebody that you know nothing about. So yes, I'm a proponent of deregulation, ultimate deregulation. I feel the same way about hemp, by the way. I think it should also, it is not regulated now under the Farm Bill, signed into law by Donald Trump, has created a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industry because it has applications beyond consumption. You can make building material out of it, you can make clothing out of it. As a libertarian, I'm in favor of deregulation.
I would be as well, only because again, I'm a little bit far that way where like I think the government should worry about government things like, counterfeiting, no bank robbery, don't steal another man's horses, cattle, like the old days. Federal should just be federal. The state should have their own little rules, right? And then the feds just back it up and be the feds. Originally, you probably know more than I do, but originally there was only X amount of federal laws, right? There weren't a lot of them. And now there's thousands of them.
Well, until 1913, the federal government was completely financed with tariff revenue. We had no federal income tax. Donald Trump would like to get back to that. He's very serious about this.
Do you think that's ever going to pass?
It could certainly pass. Secretary Besson, Secretary of Treasury, who is absolutely one of the most brilliant guys I've ever met, a real outside-the-box thinker, believer in cutting taxes, believer in deregulation, believer in gold. He's a brilliant guy. He would like to get us to the point where we could do away with the federal income tax. It's not impossible. I think it is a real goal that Trump would like to get done in 4 years. If he keeps bringing in revenue, tariff revenues at the rates we're doing so, it may actually be possible. And as you may know, in the month of June, it's the first time in 15 years the federal government actually ran a surplus.
See, again, how come that's not on the news?
It's out there. You just got to go find it.
What's the best news channel for logical people to watch that tells the most truth, if there is any?
Look, I like InfoWars. I got to be honest with you. Alex Jones is a great friend of mine. He used to do a show there for a year. I don't agree with him on everything. I agree with him on most things.
But they try to label him as batshit crazy.
Yeah, but millions of people go watch him. In fact, the more you tell people don't watch him, the more people that will go watch him.
You believe in aliens?
I think the government knows a lot about unidentified flying objects and the possibilities of other life forms.
But I mean, haven't you ever talked to like presidents that say, Roger, they exist?
I asked President Trump about this on my radio show, and he said, I really can't talk about that. So I think that tells you what you want to know.
Yeah. But again, why don't they just release it?
Well, it's interesting. Anytime they want to distract attention from some other issue, they'll schedule a hearing on Capitol Hill about UFOs to pull everybody over to watch that. It's something I don't have the curiosity about it that some people have, but there is a very famous story, which I believe to be true, where President Nixon was great friends with Jackie Gleason, the comedian, who lived in Miami, and Nixon had a place in Key Biscayne. And it is alleged, one of Gleason's wives told me the story from my book, that after a few cocktails, Nixon and Gleason went out to the Air Force Base in I guess it's not Pembroke Pines, but outside of Miami, where Nixon actually showed Gleason evidence of foreign aliens from outer space, pieces of vehicles, of flying saucers, and so on. I believe it's a true story.
Would Nixon get shit-faced or just have a few cocktails?
He did not handle his liquor well. So he was a man who, 2 drinks and he was smashed, which made him much more sociable.
Were you ever just sitting there like almost surreal, like I'm sitting here with the president? Isn't it crazy that you can just text the president if you wanted to?
Look, I worked intimately for Nixon, Reagan, and Trump. All very different. In many ways the same, but all very, very different. Nixon was nothing like his public image. He knew how many kids I had. He knew my wife's name. He knew when my birthday was. He knew my parents' name. He knew where my parents came from. I mean, you had a real personal connection with Nixon, which you would not think because he had this kind of cold, austere, public image. Reagan was the same in private as he appeared to be in public. In other words, he was affable, friendly, even-tempered, good-humored, optimistic. But there was always a gulf between you and he. If one day you didn't show up for work and somebody else had your job, he wouldn't say, "Hey, what happened to Roger?" Just he was an actor, and he thought that the role he played as president was important because if the president acts confident, then the American people will be confident. If the president looks strong, then the American people will believe in the strength of the country. So they asked him in an interview at the end of his term, so do you think the fact that you had been an actor instead of coming up through politics, do you think that hurt you in being president? And he said, I don't see how a guy who wasn't an actor who could do this job. Interesting. Trump is unlike all of them. Trump is a force of nature. He is not managed. He's not handled. He's not scripted. He's not packaged. He's very, very, very much his own man. Doesn't mean he won't ask you for your advice. Doesn't mean that he won't ask a dozen people for their advice. But in the end, he's his own man, makes his own decisions.
For sure. Well, folks, you just heard it from Roger Stone. Go follow him on X, the only place that allows him. X.
True Social, too. I'm real Roger Stone at True Social.
True Social. True. I'm on that platform. I just don't jump in there much. Is there any action in there?
It's good. You should check it out.
More than X?
No, but it's different. It is much better for talking to the base. You find more like-minded patriots there, but still very good.
Are you in there talking yourself?
I do. I post there every day. Sure.
Excellent. So go follow him, True Social, or on X. Go to stonesown.com to get all the books. And I appreciate you coming in.
Happy to be here. God bless you.
And folks, as always, keep it real.